Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Mike Soelberg, Chief of Police with Gilbert Police Department. As we've done over the last 5 weeks, we're going to provide you with updates about our teen violence investigations, our group teen violence investigations. Today, we will be going over a new investigation and 3 additional cases that are active. We want to again thank the community for the assistance they provided us with information, tips, and leads on these cases, on all of our cases. And again, thank you to the media for helping us share that information so that we can bring justice to all of our victims. Excuse me. We will be going over videos. Last week we showed you some still photos. This week we want to show you some videos and some photos. I'll walk through those with you in a minute. I want to reiterate that what the county attorney has said and I have said before is that we need to do thorough investigations. We need to present our cases to the county attorney so that they can make the decision to proceed with charges. So this is part of that process of making sure that we have all of the information, part of which is identifying individuals involved, and that is what our focus is today, is focusing on individuals that we need to, that we need to identify. So with that, we are going to go into our first video. In this video, this is, as I mentioned, a new investigation. We know who the 2 individuals are outside of the vehicle that are, as you can see, hitting this individual inside the vehicle. We need assistance in identifying the 2 individuals inside the vehicle. So again, why don't you play it one more time since it just shows them real briefly. So the individuals outside, we know who they are. Inside the vehicle, we need to know who these 2 individuals are. You can see that subject being hit several times, and then as they try to open the vehicle, the driver drives away. Go ahead to the still photos, and in the photos, it's a blown up photo of the 2 individuals inside the vehicle. So you can see both of the individuals. We need to talk to them, interview them, and identify them. So if you have any information on this case, please contact us. As stated, we do know who the individuals are outside of the vehicle. We need to identify the 2 that are inside the vehicle. All of the videos and photos that I'm talking about today will be uploaded on our teen violence website. The photos are already there. We're working on a technical glitch on getting the videos up there, but we will get them up there today. The next investigation involves one we talked about last week with our parking garage. In this incident, we need to identify the subject that is on the ground. We've identified everyone else. You can see him being lifted up, and this is just a short video. Go ahead and play it one more time. The individual on the ground is the one we're trying to identify. And that's the one we shared the photos of last week. And go ahead to the photos. We've identified the subject that is above him, and then on the ground on the second photo, we need to identify the individual that is being held. The third case that we're going to talk about is an incident, and you can go ahead and play it because it's kind of long. I'll talk over it. This is an incident that happened on the side of the road near Freestone Parkway and Guadalupe Road. We know who the 2 individuals are that are attacking the subject. The individual on the ground is who we need to identify. And as I stated, we know who the 2 individuals are that attacked the victim, but we need help in identifying the victim. Go ahead to the still photos. You can see his face isn't very clear, his or her face, but notice the shoes, the Adidas slip-ons there, and the backpack. Hopefully someone can recognize that, but if we could get that individual identified, that would help us in this investigation. The last one that we're going to go over is a case from January 2023. In this case, the victim is a juvenile. We know who the victim is. We spoke to the parents and received their permission to show this video because we need to identify, go ahead and roll it. We need to identify the 2 individuals that attack the victim. You can see the 3 that we're talking about, the victim's leaning against the wall, and then he starts being attacked by the 2 individuals that were standing in front of him. The still photos, we highlighted the two on the right there. Those are the two individuals we're trying to identify. So if anyone has any information about that case or any of the other investigations that we just talked about, or any other investigations that we did not just talk about, please continue to contact the Gilbert Police Department and through our tip line or through our dispatch. Just to wrap up, these photos are already on the website, and we are working on getting the videos loaded onto the website as well. As a reminder, since February of 2022, we have made 40 arrests regarding group teen violence cases. We currently now have 12 investigations. If you recall, last week we were at 10. That first video brought us up to 11, and then the reactivated case from the garage where we talked to the parents, got permission to share that video, that brought us up to 12. We continue to ask, as I just mentioned, the community's help in identifying not only the individuals involved in these videos, but if there's any additional information that they have on any crimes, to please contact the Gilbert Police Department. We want to thank you for being here and helping us share that message. Last week, I mentioned that the teen violence subcommittee was going to be on the 21st. However, I want to make sure everyone got the notice that that has changed. Our next teen subcommittee meeting is on Monday, the 26th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Southeast Regional Library. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Chief. Thank you. Since the beginning of the year, how many new cases have you guys gotten?
Well, keep in mind at the beginning of January, all the videos that we received in December, at the mid to late December and early January, we activated new investigations, and some of those, 3 of those new investigations, we were able to tie into calls for service where we got a call for service for a fight, but everyone was gone. So I don't have the exact number that we've had from that, but since we first talked about after those initial video cases that came in December and January, we've had the one case at Val Vista, just south of Val Vista Lakes area in the park that would happen, I believe, January 27th. And then the investigation on that first video that we showed you, that is another new investigation. We're still trying to identify that part of the question. 2 is, when did that occur? Like I said, we know who the individuals outside the vehicle are. We need to know who the individuals inside are.
I just have a clarifying question about the videos, and then if I could get to my actual question. So you said you're still working to figure out when the first video, the third video, do you know approximately when or where either of those? So
the first video, we believe it was around mid-August. We have a date stamp, but we're trying to verify when it actually occurred. And what was the second one?
And then do you know where?
We believe it's in the In-N-Out parking lot, but we're not positive on that.
And then the third video in which you're trying to identify the victim, I believe you said Freestone Parkway and
Guadalupe.
Do you know when, approximately?
I'm trying to remember the date on that. We'll get that date to you.
Okay.
It was last summer, I believe.
Okay.
But I don't have the exact date.
And then my question for you is, we've gone into a couple of stores in the East Valley that sell brass knuckles just to kind of see what the experience is like, how accessible they are. And we found that in a couple of cases, they actually brand and package the brass knuckles as heavy-duty belt buckles. Curious to get your response to that branding.
It's a free market. You know, weapons like that, brass knuckles, whether they're part of a belt buckle or just sold as brass knuckles, that's the market bears that out on what they want to sell. My stance to that, as we've talked about before, of banning those, we are in support of that bill, which would ban those. And so the way that bill was written, that would include a belt buckle that could be used as brass knuckles. So that should still be included based on my interpretation of the legislative proposal.
Chief, as we've seen all these arrests, we noticed that a number of these attacks have been with a core group of young men who've kind of varied in attack to attack. There has been a lot of question about the kind of loosely constructed state law that identifies people as being in a gang or not in a gang, that criteria, but none of these young men, teenagers, have been charged as gang members or in gang crimes to date. What is your thought process on where we stand on possible gang charges? Could those be added later in the cases? Or are these not gang cases?
So each case is unique, and we have to look at each case to determine if the gang criteria can be brought on the charges for each case. So to go back a little bit on our gang investigation that we are doing, that we began in November, and we're still, as I mentioned last week, we're making progress on that. The intent of that investigation is to determine if any of the individuals that we've been investigating can be identified as being part of a gang. Once we establish if they are part of a gang, then we have to establish, can we establish criminal charges based on, just because you're a gang member doesn't mean anything you do is gang related. So then we have to investigate that connection between the gang status and their behavior to determine if that is gang related. And so that is something we will work with the county attorney's office, our investigators working with the other agencies to investigate whether these individuals can be classified as a gang and if gang charges are appropriate.
So not too late to add?
No, yeah. It's just like adding additional charge. If we obtain additional information which supports an additional charge, we would submit additional charges to the county attorney for review, just like any other charge. Let me clarify, if they've already been adjudicated, yes, it's too late. But if they are still pending charges or any future cases, then we can add those charges. Recommend they be added.
So we're starting to see a lot of ramifications for not only the suspects in these cases of teen violence, but also family members, in some cases coaches. What's your take on that? Because obviously surrounding these types of investigations, there is a court of public opinion.
Yeah, I have to focus, and our officers have to focus on our criminal investigations, what's happening in the community, and any public sentiment about what should or should not happen. That's for the public and those individual organizations to handle. We are focused on our investigations, making sure we're doing thorough investigations, submitting those to the county attorney, and proceeding with our cases regardless of what the opinion of who should be there or not. Our focus is on the investigations.
Hello, Elena with the Arizona Republic. One of the lawsuits the first one from last week, alleges, and it's talking about August attack, it talks about a couple of individuals that have not been arrested in that case. So I'm wondering if, I don't think it is because it's not part of the active investigations now, but is that case going to be reactivated, or have all suspects been, or potential people been interviewed?
Can you specify which case?
The August 18th
okay.
in-out attack.
So we have identified and charged all the individuals that we believe are involved, but that does not mean that if we obtain additional information that we could not reopen the case and charge additional. Just like any case, whether it's cleared arrest, inactivated, or cleared by an arrest, if facts change, we have additional information, we can always reopen a case. So if we receive additional information, we can always reopen the case. That case specifically is currently closed by arrest. As I mentioned, we made 6 arrests, but if we receive additional information, we will reopen the case and pursue charges.
I have kind of a series of questions just depending on your answers, but we have consistently heard from victims and their families that they provided evidence, whether that be photos, video, we've kind of talked about that. But in these cases, can you kind of talk to me a little bit about what the police department considers threats? What is a threat that the police department would look further into?
Yeah, with threats cases, and like I mentioned before, each case is unique. When a threat is made, whether it's online, in person, we need to, for one, capture that threat, whether it be electronically, voice, recordings, whatever. We need to be able to evaluate that evidence to determine if we can establish probable cause. Each case is different and unique. We have obviously talked about several threat cases. 2 of our active cases are threat cases that we're still investigating. And in those cases, it's not just what was said. We need to build that picture, like I said, a full investigation of what's the context. Was there anything? So if I have a statement, I need to know through the individuals involved what was said before or after. Were there any gestures? It's more to just seeing something in writing or hearing something. There's often two sides of the story, and we need to know both sides. And is there any additional information that we can gather to help support a charge? Whether it's a threat, harassment, assault, we still have to do a full investigation and evaluate all of the evidence. And sometimes it's difficult to get all of that evidence, but that's what we need, is a full picture of what actually occurred.
Just kind of a follow-up to that. In a specific case, there was a situation where somebody had a Snapchat of a gun, basically telling that person to come meet them because they wanted to fight or something.
Yep.
In that situation, is that something that the police department would take seriously as a threat?
Any threat we take seriously. Obviously, perception of what that threat is and what was said in that photo. But that's a case that is active, and so I'm somewhat limited in what I can tell you, but I can tell you we did take it very seriously. We still do take it very seriously. But going back to what I said, we need to have the full picture and making sure that we receive all of the evidence involving a threat. And sometimes that goes beyond just what's on Snapchat, what conversations took place between the individuals before or after. How was that threat made? Was there any threat made in addition to that? We don't want to pursue just one thing. We have to make sure we have the full picture. And in that case specifically, we are still investigating that and trying to obtain the full picture of that incident.
Just one follow-up to that, sorry. There are just allegations out there that claim that the police department did not do anything to protect a potential victim, or even after the fact, after there was already an attack. What is your response to those claims?
So as I said before, we actively investigate every case. So when a threat is made, we still have to establish probable cause. Part of that establishing probable cause is obtaining all of the evidence that goes towards that allegation. And in those cases, sometimes it takes time to retrieve and have that information provided to us. And then once we do, we have to make sure we still have all of the information. And so as that information comes into us, we evaluate it. Do we have enough to establish probable cause to make an arrest? So by not making an arrest that night or the next day does not mean that we did not take that or any other case seriously. We take every case seriously, and we actively investigate each one, but we have to do a thorough investigation.
Thank you. Hi, Chief Soelberg. Alan Ogustols from KTR News. I know we're awaiting a lot of final details on these investigations, but I wanted to ask if you can give us any insight into any consistent factors that make up these cases, any sort of commonalities that the police department is identifying in these variety of cases?
Some of those similarities will come out when we do the gang investigation, when we talk to you about that case and what the findings are from that. But as you've seen in these videos, and we've talked about it in the past as well, that some of these have been random, that it's just someone walking through a parking lot and they get targeted for some reason. In other cases, they know each other, they have a beef with each other for one reason or another. Regardless of what that beef is, that does not justify anyone being assaulted. But in some cases, they've known each other. Sometimes it's at parties. Sometimes it's just when they're hanging out at different locations. So each case is unique, as you heard me say, and the circumstances of each one is different. But that is what we're trying to, in our gang investigation, determine if we can classify these individuals as a gang, what commonalities and similar characteristics, not only in their behavior, but then how does that tie into all of our cases, and then looking a step beyond to the cases of other agencies, Mesa, Chandler, Queen Creek, Pinal County.
We have any more questions?
No, thanks. Going back to the 4 cases that you talked about at the beginning, can you clarify which ones are new and when you were first notified about each case? So
the first video that I showed you, we obtained that through our investigation last week. And so we initiated a new case. We received the video last week through a different investigation. We initiated a new investigation this week on that one. All of the other 3 are prior cases that we've talked about in the past. The 4th one that I talked to you about, the garage, In that case, it was reported in January 2023. We worked with the victim and his family to try to identify the subjects that had attacked him. We were unable to, and as you saw on the video, we wanted to share it. We want to exhaust all means to try to identify the suspects that attacked him. But we have not been able to do so on that case, and we consulted with them and make sure they were good with us sharing that, and so that case was reopened so that we could share it.
But initially reported in January.
Yeah.
20. Okay.
Yep.
All right, this will be the last question.
Chief, in regards to Ray's Elementary yesterday, was that a case of social media misinterpreting what was going on, or the inaccuracy that you talked about, or how did police determine that was not a real threat?
Yeah, we received a copy of a screenshot from that case, and the information that was shared with that, not from the post, but from people who interpreted that, that's where the threat originated, was from the interpretation of what was said. We investigated that. We determined there was no active threat at any time by the individual involved or at the school or any other individuals. All right.
I have another one.
Melissa's last one,
Okay.
just because I'm nice.
The quick yes or no, first of all, did any of those videos that we see today come from search warrants of suspects in other cases, folks?
So I will just state that through investigative means, we obtained additional videos.
And then we've seen last night at the Chandler Unified School District School Board calls for the superintendent to resign, kind of developing out of this notice of claim that's come up. What are you telling your SROs now about how they should be proceeding and what they should be doing? Are you asking them to go back through their records? Are you asking them to keep a keener eye out to try to catch some of these things sooner?
So I'm not asking our SROs to do anything different, because they've been doing an excellent job with all of their cases and the way they handle all of their students and anything that happens at their school. We have 12 SROs assigned to all of our high school and junior highs. They're there 5 days a week, 10 hours a day at each location. We want to make sure that the students feel safe, the parents feel safe, and they do an excellent job of doing so. So we've asked them to keep doing that. When it comes to reviewing old cases, that's what we are handling on our side and with our detectives, reviewing any additional information that may or may not need to happen on each case. But our SROs, they're excellent officers, and they do an excellent job building that trust with the community and the kids. That's what's key to making sure that community, being the schools, stay safe. All right, with that, thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. And don't forget the subcommittee on the 26th. Thank you.